Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, thanks for stopping by, and if you're a returning subscriber, thanks for coming back to watch another video. It's so good to have you here with me again today. Right, so as you can tell from the title of today's video, I'm going to be bringing you another episode of my Instagram live series, Tea Money Talks. So this is actually episode number 6, and it's the grand finale of season 3. I'll be back again in 2022 with season 4, and that's going to be in a totally different format, so definitely stay tuned for that, and I'll keep you updated when I'm going to launch season 4. But in today's episode for the finale, I was joined by the amazing Janet Martin over at Success All, and we spoke all about financial education for children. She shared a lot about her own financial journey and just loads of gems that parents will definitely want to know when it comes to teaching your children about money. So if that is something of interest to you, definitely stay tuned for this video and give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't yet done so, and without further ado, I'm going to jump into the replay of the episode for you now.
Hey Janet. Hello. Okay, oh my gosh, for a second there I thought there was no audio. I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. No, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm fine, and the voice sounds lovely, actually. Work it.
Okay, yeah, I know. I do like the kind of deep voice, yeah, kind of soulful. Yeah. No, but how are you, Janet? Thanks for joining me on tonight's live.
Yeah, I'm really well. It's bonfire night, so there's a lot of explosions going on in the background. Just ignore that if you can hear it.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm going to firework display tomorrow actually with the kids, so yeah, that should be nice. But yeah, no, thank you for joining me on today's live. I guess before we jump into the live, I've done a pre-introduction, but it'd be good for you in your own words to kind of introduce yourself to the guys and tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Janet, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Success All, and publishing is the main thing that I'm doing at the moment, through books, mainly on Amazon, around topics that are close to my heart. My company mission is to empower people, so I'm really passionate about delivering information that's valuable, that helps people become the best version of themselves as well, really into diversity and inclusion, and any way that uplifts people. I always feel like if one of my products touch one person in a special way, then I've really done what I've setting out to do.
No, I love that. Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, cool. So what I like to do before getting into the meat and heart of the conversation is a little bit of an icebreaker. So this is basically 2 truths and 1 lie. So I'm going to tell you 2 truths and 1 lie. You kind of have to guess what the lie is, and then it'll be your turn to do the same. So tell me 2 truths and a lie. Okay, so I've been doing this for the past 6 weeks now, so I'm running out of truths to share and lies to do, but let me think of a couple. Okay, so I've got a couple down actually. Okay, so number 1, I used to dance in a group. In fact, I danced in a couple of groups when I was in secondary school. So yeah, I was a bit of a dancer. What else have I got on my list? I'm usually late to functions, so I usually arrive late to meetups with friends. Why already give me the side eye? And then the last one is I have a degree as a financial accountant. Oh, in financial accounting, sorry. So I've got a financial accounting degree.
So I'm going to go with the dancing one. As
the lie?
Yes.
Yeah, no. It's not a lie. I can't dance, but when I was younger, I thought I could do everything. So funny because last week my lie was that I used to sing in a group. No, my truth, sorry, was that I used to sing in a group, and then this week I'm saying I used to dance. Both of these things are true. Both of these things I can't do, but back then nobody told me how bad I was.
Being your best self.
Exactly. But yeah, okay, over to you.
Okay, so I've met Oprah twice.
Oh wow.
I've been to the Grammys twice. I've met Michael Jackson twice.
Wow. Oh my gosh, these are really big truths. Ooh. Michael Jackson twice is the lie.
Oh, well done. That's the one. Yeah, that's the lie.
Okay. Yeah, you see, I just thinking you put that one there to throw a spell in the works. I was like, okay, so I got Oprah and Michael. But wow, that's impressive. Where did you meet Oprah?
So I lived and worked in the States for a good few years in music and entertainment. So yeah, I've met a whole bunch of people, worked with them, done quite a few things in my career.
No, that's absolutely incredible. Oh my gosh, we'll talk offline. You can tell me all about that. But okay, cool. No, thanks for coming on anyway, like I said before, to have this conversation. So I guess before we dive into the topic of talking about financial education with children, what I like to do with my guests is kind of take the listeners on a journey, so kind of talk a bit more about your background, and then how you've come to be where you are today. So just, I guess, to begin with, just tell me a bit about your background and what it is that, your background. So growing up, well, in fact, let's start off with that question, actually. The money story question. I do like to talk about that a lot. Money, that's my thing. So what would you say is your money story? What's your relationship like with money growing up versus now? Has it changed in any way? Or what was your relationship like with money over the years?
Yeah, so growing up, I don't think we really talked about money much at home. That was, an adult subject, and we were the kids and not to be involved with it too much. What is interesting is that I come from inherited money. So my mum actually inherited a lot of money, a lot of property. But what was interesting about that is I don't think that her dad passed on the tricks of the trade of how he actually accumulated his wealth. And I think it's quite a classic story that, inheritance tends to not last many generations without us passing on how we actually acquired it, or not being close to the acquiring of the money and just spending it. It's a different relationship when it's not your money. I was definitely taught how to spend money. But I actually ended up being quite frugal. I've always been quite frugal. I've always, I started working really young at 13. Oh, wow. I had my first job. Just a paper round. Right. But really taught me, it was interesting. I was watching one of your previous lives about the little boy who bought his own bike and how that became more, valuable to him. And I think I had a case of that. I bought my first Game Boy myself. Like, all I wanted in the world was a Game Boy, and my dad was like, "Not buying that for you. You're going to have to go out and earn the money." And it then meant so much more to me. So I really liked earning my own money and seeing the value in it as well. But was not taught any of the valuable lessons that you talk about and we now have access to. So I'm one of those people that, oh man, if I'd only known, especially when I had my career and no kids and, money wasn't an issue. It's one of those regrets, to be honest with you. It's a strong word, and I don't like to say that I have regrets, but it's like, things would have been real different because time is such a gift when it comes to growing your wealth.
Tell me about it. No, totally can relate to that. So then I guess my next question would be then, at what point did you get that? When did you start to learn about money then, would you say? So you came into a lot of money, or not you came into a lot of money, but as in your family. So I guess observation wise, you've seen kind of how people in your family handle money and stuff. But I guess what was it that kind of formed your perception of money, or how you started managing money for yourself, if that question makes sense?
So I quit my corporate job when I was expecting my first child. Oh, wow. Because I wanted to be at home with my kids. Part of my mum inheriting the money was that she wasn't around a lot when I was growing up. She was actually gone for like 5 years or so overseas, where she's from in Nigeria, to manage, the properties and everything. So I decided I want to be around for my kids and decided to quit corporate life. I was in the music industry, and music industry and family don't go hand in hand that well.
Imagine.
So I quit my job, and I have what I like to call FU money. So I was able to say, look, I'm out. I'm good. I was excellent at saving money. That's perhaps my most frustrating hindsight thing, because I had the money and I knew what to do with it, and I was quite frugal. Even when I was single, I always lived in a studio. I was like, all I need is a studio, somewhere to just lay my head. My expenses were real low. I was able to save a lot. So I quit the job and then worked through my savings pretty quickly. That's what I was surviving on. And then that's when I started learning about money. I think I just, through general self-development and being on YouTube, I stumbled across Our Rich Journey, who are so good, right? And
so good.
They're really good. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that was the book that made me like
yeah.
I was like, you're telling me this now? Like,
that book should be in this national curriculum for schools. Like,
I've given it to my daughter. She did close it quite quickly. I think she's young. I gave it to her. She must have read it when she was like 7 or 8. But I put it in her hands. I was like, yeah. And then she like gave it back. But I just feel that it's such valuable lessons in there, and that was the time that the obsession started, to be honest with you. I find managing my money and growing wealth really fun and exciting. I like even researching what stocks I'm going to buy, or what funds I'm going to buy, or who's got the lowest, fees, and, where is it diversified. I'm totally into all that. So yeah, it just became an obsession from then on. And I wanted to change my future, my kids' future, because you can even come from wealth and not know how to handle money.
100%. And they say that actually it usually skips a generation, doesn't it? So it takes one generation to acquire it, the next one squanders it, then the generation after that builds it, and it's like, never ending.
Right here, so it's not possible.
What's that?
I said that's me right here. I'm the next one that's and it's interesting, especially talking about how I grew up with money. Coming from abundance was quite because there's positives and negatives, and just seeing that there is an abundance of money in the world. It's an energy. And one great lesson my mum taught me was just the flow. She's never tight with her money. Always giving. Always just giving. And that's something that I like to reflect. We have our charity pot, and I give to a different charity every month, and I enjoy doing that, and I also teach my kids to do that. So there's negatives and positives in how I grew up with money.
Amazing. And thank you for being so open as well, for sharing a bit of your story. So now I guess what that kind of leads me on to is, what made you make the transition into the financial education / wanting to create content, or create products rather, for financial education for children?
Yeah, I think it was that day that I literally felt physically sick, and was just blown away that financial literacy isn't something that we're educated on extremely early, and just as a life skill. For me, it goes with mental health, nutrition, just how we exist and prosper in life. And it just became really important to me that, as part of my company of spreading words and information and knowledge, that this was a huge part of it. And especially reaching out to kids as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely incredible. And so then I guess the next question I have for you is in terms of financial education for your children. So you said you gave your daughter the Rich Dad Poor Dad book when she was 7. So I guess you had already started introducing her to money even at a younger age than that, would you say?
Yeah, a little bit younger. It's just part of our life now. I think not having as a family, to backtrack a little, before I got onto the financial literacy world, we never really even discussed money as a couple, me and my husband, or had a budget. That was something I learned from our rich journey. I still to this day use the budget that they give, but what are we spending?
It's so true. I'm agreeing with what you're saying, because we were exactly in the same boat. I think it wasn't until year 6 or year 7 that we actually started budgeting. Before that, we just got on. We just managed to make it work, but there was no intentionality or any forward planning beyond maybe saving up to buy the house and stuff. But just in general, the day-to-day management of the finances, how much we put in here, how much we put in there, how much for food, how much for groceries, how much for going out. There was none of that before. So I could totally relate to that.
And the great thing about that is it's so empowering when you are aware fully. We meet monthly and are going over those numbers and planning for what we're going to do, and it just puts you in a different position where you're controlling the money rather than money controlling you. So I involve the kids in all of that. I talk to them. They look at our budget. I'm like,
so it's a family budget meeting. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, they get involved. They're not deciding where we allocate the money. It's an open discussion, and I want them to see that money isn't a taboo, money isn't bad, and that money can afford them opportunities. I did a lot of traveling, as I've mentioned, and I was able to study overseas and do all these sort of things, and I want my children to have those same opportunities.
No, absolutely incredible. So then, how would you say to, I guess, a parent that's watching now that wants to kind of educate their children on money? Any tips or advice that you would give to them, or any strategies that you think has worked with your children? I've got another question actually that just came to mind, which I'll ask you next. But yeah, we start with that one.
I think, so I've got two kids, different ages, but just different personalities. And I think that it's just an ongoing kind of education and discussion and lesson. And it's different for each child. One of them is just like, yeah, take my money, go and invest it, mum. And the other one's like, yeah, I need to go to the shop now and spend this. And there's still more of a discussion about how we're allocating the pots. But I'd really just say, yes, it's an everyday discussion. We were walking home from school the other day, and that was it with my youngest, because I just had the one child. Just what is money? How grandma gave her money, but then the money went into the bank, and then it's in my phone because I pay with my phone. And it's helping them to understand, even that simple breakdown, which we didn't have to have as kids. It was money, and it was money, and that was it, right? Yeah. But now it's on a card, it's on the phone, and I think kids can think that it's a limitless resource.
Yeah. Just use your phone to pay. Yeah, it's fine. Just use the card. Yeah.
Yeah. But we have to understand that that was originally money, virtual or real, and that it's got a cap on it. So yeah, just ongoing discussions. I plan to keep talking to them throughout the stages, when they're teens, when they start their careers, and adapt it for each child as well.
No, definitely. And I guess so far, since you've been doing the financial education with them, have you noticed any, like, I don't know, do you have any example of like maybe what? So I'm just thinking of that book that we was talking about earlier, that Zaki bought his bicycle. Do you have any similar examples with your children when it comes to like them maybe saving up for things, or them wanting something and them realizing, oh, actually maybe I need to save up for this, or anything?
Yeah. Well, there's my own book that I've written, which is Grow Your Own Adventure, and the title and the actual idea of the story is that by investing, you are growing your own adventure in the future. So what do you want to do in your future? Thinking about that, it teaches about, allocating pots. So we do the spend, invest, and give pots. I'm really into philanthropy. And also just teaching them about the delayed gratification. And that's a really hard one for kids to learn. So even grandma gave them money over half term. And as I was saying, one of them really wanted to spend it. So I then had to do the example. I said, if I could give you 1 sweet today or 3 sweets tomorrow, which would you take? And it's like, the 3 sweets tomorrow. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's how it's working with our money, where we've got to wait for it to do what it needs to before we can get the most out of it. So the book that I've written goes into that and teaches it at a primary school age level, where they're able to understand it.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to get my hands on my copy of that book, because it sounds like a really, really good story, I think, and it's definitely going to be really helpful for teaching my children about investing, because trying to get their little mind to kind of grasp it is a lot, but to get them to grasp it at a young age would be so powerful, because I only found out about it quite later on in life. So for them to get it at a young age would be really, really amazing.
Which is then kind of frustrating, because when you do find out about it later in life, you're like, great, I've lost 2 decades or whatever it is.
Yeah, no, literally quite a few years. Yeah, quite a few years missed out on that inflation, but what can you do? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, inflation, I meant compound interest, sorry. I said inflation. Okay, cool. So I've got a few more questions actually, and then you can ask me any questions that you may have for me as well. And you guys that are listening in, if you have any questions, don't be shy, definitely ask away. Okay, cool. Do you have any advice or any ideas on how to make learning about money fun for children?
I think so I've focused a lot on the illustrations in the book that I'm putting together. So it's lots of bright colours. I've got a character that looks like my children as well, someone that they can identify with. As I said, really into diversity. I think that it's about making it an everyday discussion. Just any way that maybe even you can make it seem like they're teaching you as well. So I get them to, what's the difference between saving and investing? And they're able to say it back to me as well. So it's not preaching all the time. Just keeping it interesting, relevant, putting it into everyday life as we discuss all sorts of other things as well. It's just normal, and also being an example myself through my own actions as well, I think is really important.
Yeah, I would argue that's probably one of the most important parts, actually. It's learning from observation, because I know for me, from my childhood, a lot of what I learned about money was more from what I saw my parents do, as opposed to what they actually told me about money. So yeah, they're definitely watching us, even if they're not saying anything, they're watching and they're picking up on these things. So no, I definitely agree with that, for sure. Okay, so there was a question I was going to ask for, and I asked you the last question. It's literally just gone from my head, which is quite annoying. But if I remember, I'll come back to it anyway. But just in terms of resources or anything that you'd recommend to parents wanting to teach their children about money?
Well, there's going to be the book that I'm bringing out, which I will highly recommend. And I mentioned, before we were discussing doing this live together, I initially was looking at crowdfunding for my book, and had started putting out the feelers and speaking to different organisations. And what I was getting is that there's an opportunity for this to be more than just a book. What I found, I already sell on Amazon, and Amazon's a search engine, yeah? So when you're selling on there, you're wanting to put products on that people have an interest in. And for financial literacy, and it'd be, good to know your opinion on this, it's something that people don't necessarily immediately get, or want to get, or want to hear. And they're not particularly out on Amazon in huge numbers looking for financial literacy for their kids. So I've started working, I've spoken to some big financial institutions, and looking at a model where it's maybe more of a family thing, where we maybe engage the parents more, because you've kind of got to be into financial literacy to want to buy a financial literacy book for your kid, right? So I don't know, like, how have you found is a good way of convincing people, or do you feel that they have to get it to get on board with it?
Oh, 100%, because that's, I think, teaching the children about money is the next layer, isn't it? They've got to want to actually fix it for themselves first before they then think, oh, let me teach my children about money. But I think a lot of times, and from the feedback that I had from my guest that was on here a few weeks ago with her own book on personal finance, she had that same thing, that same feedback from parents, in that the parents that kind of, I don't want to say didn't have their finances together, but the parents that kind of were uncomfortable with having money conversations, or kind of uncomfortable with managing their own finances, for them to now be reading books about money to their children that will then open up those conversations that they themselves don't feel capable to have with their children. They're not really up for doing that. Does that make sense? So I think, yeah, it's more of an educational piece for the parents, and then trying to encourage them and empower them to educate their children. So I think books like the book that you've written, you're going to release, will be helpful, but it's just positioning it more to the parents rather than to the children, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what I'm in the midst of doing. I'm looking at a pilot, and in some way, either it's a family event, or we are targeting the parents first, or it's a two-way discussion. So my kids have come home, they had like one assembly on recycling, and they've been like, I don't throw that away, So there is opportunity for your kids to come home and educate the parents. Because they're like, don't you throw that plastic bottle away, you're killing whales. So if you get the message to them, but at the same time, I think with this one, because it's not currently a pressing issue, although it should be, right? I actually, while I was researching, sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place, but
it's a good conversation.
While I was researching the actual book, I was looking at Generation Alpha, and they're the kids born between like 2010 and 2020. So 2025, a certain generation. And it was looking at what their future's going to be like, yeah? So they're tech savvy, which is obviously going to happen, but they're a lot more entrepreneurial, it's predicted. Even now with what happened with the pandemic, the way we're working is very different. These kids are predicted to live to 100 years old in some countries, yeah? Life expectancy is going to be really long. In addition, we as their parents are expected to live a lot longer. Like, it's not too hard to hit 80 nowadays, depending on which country you live on. So they've got a long life to sustain themselves. Might have to be looking after previous generations. Yeah, potentially generations, right? So it just makes sense to me that we equip the children with the skills that they're needing for the world that they're going to be facing. Yeah. And what I found is, unfortunately, in the UK, I'm aware of, like, you know, the national curriculum, there's not actually a slot for financial literacy. When I've been speaking to schools, you know, you've got your maths, your English, you've got science, PE. When I've spoken to schools, where does financial literacy fit in? And it doesn't. So if it's not coming from schools and it's not coming from parents, it's a different kind of challenge that I'm facing, which I'm all for, because I think, you know, that if you care about it and it's going to be harder work, I'm all for that. I'm just looking for the right partners, and maybe someone's watching, please.
Exactly, or someone that's going to watch the replay as well. Yeah,
please get in touch with me. But looking at ways that we can speak to parents differently, and some of the partners I'm working with are saying that the timing for this is really good. You've had universal credit cut. You've got families who are, 3 months or so away from losing their homes, don't have £100 in savings. You know, the stats are really worrying. And also for this future generation that's going to live for a long time, they've got to be in a position where they're able to sustain themselves. Yeah. And that is included in being financial literate, especially if you're not going to be in the traditional 9 to 5. The college, the university, work, mortgage, pension model might not apply to our children.
It probably won't to many of them anyway, yeah.
And it's already starting to not to. They're saying, I was reading an article yesterday, and it was an American-based one, but they were like, and it's a big country, but millions of people have quit their jobs in the pandemic, saying, you know, I don't want this anymore.
Resignation, they're calling it, yeah.
Yeah, you've seen that, right?
Yeah, I've seen a few videos about it.
Yeah, which kind of makes sense. And then there's also, what of our traditional roles are going to still be around? You know, we're seeing robots delivering things. We're seeing
closing, yeah.
So I think it just makes sense to think forward for my kids, because I feel that my role as a parent is hooking you up so you can survive comfortably for the rest of your life. Yeah. And one of those things is going to be their financial literacy.
No, 100% agree. And yeah, it's definitely needed, these kind of sessions and workshops and all those kind of things that you're considering doing. I think 100% it's definitely worthwhile. It's something I definitely want to explore as well early next year, is doing these workshops. So yeah, and it's so, yeah, I guess we could definitely have this conversation offline, but yeah, it's something that I really wanted to look into, is how to do it in a way so it's a safe space for mums and kids. Yeah, mums are my passion. Yeah, dads too, but mums and kids is where I really want to see kind of bridge that gap and open up those conversations, so that those mums, like I was mentioning earlier, that find it uncomfortable to have this conversation with their kids because they themselves are not confident with managing money. It's like how to empower them, to empower their kids, and kind of open up that dialogue so that it's not such a taboo topic and it's not an uncomfortable conversation to have. And
so question for you, how have you found converting people? Because I even have family members that are looking at me like, well, why wouldn't you just spend your money? Like,
everyone, that's the thing. I've got the majority of the people that I'm around, a lot of my friends, they just think Tolly's doing too much. But then equally, there's a lot that do support what I'm doing, and they do actually ask. You laughing at me, but
she's doing too much. She needs to go and sit down and just
Like, it's not every day talking about budgets, Tolly, but yeah, like that is me. But that's why I do these lives and I get around like-minded people, because it kind of gives me that extra push. Because if you're in an environment where you're the only person that thinks a certain way, it's very easy to be influenced by them. But when you get around enough like-minded people, then you can go back and recharge, and you can kind of face being around people, if that makes sense. But that's how I kind of balance it out. But yeah, a lot of people don't get it. A lot of them get it and it's like, okay, that's good for you, but I don't need that. And then there's a lot of people that may not say anything, but are silently watching them being impacted and making application or applying the things that I talk about. So like, it's so funny, more often than not, people won't come back and say to you like, oh yeah, I watched this video, or I've downloaded your budget, or I've done this, or I've done that. They just kind of do it and get on with it, which is totally fine. So I guess I just continue to spread my money message, and yeah, those that it resonates with, and some people it might not be for them today, but the information is still there, so you can come back to it next month, next year, or whenever you need to come back, when you need to come back to it, kind of thing.
And I think it's a good question you asked at the top. You know, how did you grow up with money? Because there can be so much fear attached to losing money, making money. Like it depending on what your experience was, it can be quite scary for people. And even for myself, like I remember investing at first was quite scary. Like figuring out which fund. Yeah, I enjoy it now. I don't know how much time we've got left. I originally put my kids' money into the Halifax, so it was making 4% for the first year, and then I think it drops down to 2% for the rest of the year. So I was like, that's no good. Like when I started learning about money, I was like, that's not working. So I just went into the Halifax and didn't know even how to withdraw it. I just signed up with them at one point, didn't know how to withdraw it, took my passport just in case. Before you know it, I had like a few thousand of their money like in my bag, just in the shopping centre. She was like, oh yeah, just sign here and you can have. I was like, oh, all right, like, you know, just didn't know what to do with the money, and like, because I wasn't used to it. But then I was like, okay, we've got the money now, set up their Vanguard. Another, like, as you were saying, another thing that my daughter, the oldest one, who's at an age where she gets it better, she's 9, really loves, is to look at her Vanguard. She says, show me the one.
Oh, I love that.
Show me the one that goes like this. And like seeing, I was like, oh yeah, there's a big dip there. You know, when March 2020 happened. Yes. I said, don't worry about that because it's going to go up again. And
I love that.
She loves to see how her money grows. So yeah, but every few months or so, I like seeing their money's doing double digits, like of growth. So it's a nice chart to look at.
Gosh, I'm about to drop my ring. Like, no, it's fine. Prices averted. Yeah, good to you.
But yeah, I think there's so many aspects to this that I'm working on. I'm getting my partners together. I'm looking at doing some really cool things, and I've got some good supporters. I think, like you were saying, when you're around a like-minded person, so there's an agency that I'm working with, and he's got access to a few financial institutions, and he was like, yes, this is timely, this is just doing it in the right way. And that's not necessarily through a book that people aren't necessarily demanding at the moment. I can do something else around the story, around the narrative, around the message, and around who I'm targeting, but it's maybe how I deliver it in the right place at the right time that gets the message out there better.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So you have a time frame at the moment that you're working towards?
Oh man, like he said January, and I'm like, January for what? Like, and that was where I started running up with some roadblocks, because I initially first went to like schools and places that were educating young children, and they're like not ready, not able, not. And even if the teacher gets it, because one of the teachers was like, yeah, she said, I just opened my Vanguard in lockdown. I had no idea. Like she said, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, totally on board, but she's on board, but the Ofsted isn't. Right?
It's beyond her. There's a ranking order, isn't there?
And just the time it takes for certain institutions to move. So I'm going with some people that are a little more nimble, people that get it a little better. And it's exciting. Yeah, I'm thinking more apps. I'm thinking more something digital. I'm thinking more resources that get the family on board and in it and engaging. Yeah, gamifying it. That, exactly that.
No, brilliant. That's absolutely amazing. And yeah, I can't wait to see all of what you have. And if you need any support or any help with anything, then definitely give me a shout. But I guess before we wrap up, if there's any one piece of advice or any kind of money related thing that you want to share with the guys before we head off.
I would just say with yeah, just talk to your kids, involve them. I mean, you know this already. Like we have to. We've learned our own way. Just involve your children, and as early as possible. It's never too early. It's never too early to just get them on board and understanding, and being the example as well. Is really important. We've given up, like, I stopped wearing Nike. Like, I'm from a marketing background, and that's one of the most, the brands that we're most loyal to. But me wearing Nike means my kids got to wear Nike, which costs 3 times as much as Decathlon, which do just as good a job. So we're getting rid of the commercial need for accumulating stuff, and then the sustainability. If you like the environment, don't buy a lot of stuff. Like we don't need 150. Sorry?
No, I was saying that we're being fed that so much, particularly like on social media, and that it's always buy. Like literally you can't scroll more than 3 posts without being shown an ad or seeing somebody advertising some kind of product. And it's like, how much do we really need? Probably not as much as we consume.
And that's particularly what my 9-year-old is up against. She's really into YouTube. She loves watching YouTube, but it's like the unboxings and that sort of thing. And I'm like, it's not real. They're being sent those. They're not buying those. But having to repeat that and in different ways.
Yeah, no, it's definitely challenging, but those kind of steps that you've taken, as radical as they may sound to some people, it makes a big difference that you wouldn't believe. So exactly, it's one thing you say, I'm not going to buy branded stuff for the kids, but then if you're covered in it, then it's going to be very hard for you to kind of say no to the children. So no, that's pretty cool. I don't think I'm there yet, no. But maybe one.
It was a big step for me. It was a really big. The first time I didn't buy a pair of Nike trainers, it's like a cult, I remember going to Nike Town in Oxford Circus. That's a day, and I've been so addicted to it, and then I just let go of it, and I was like, oh, what if people look at my feet? And who cares? Who cares? Who cares? And I'm too grown to care about who cares what trainers I'm wearing. And then she also doesn't care. And I've noticed that because my daughter plays football, and a lot of the kids that play football are wearing the Decathlon ones. They're called like Domyos or something like that. I don't know what they're called, because we've got such a big Decathlon near us. But the kids are now accepting that these football boots are good football boots, and they've got a name to them, and it's a name that doesn't even really matter, So
it does the job. And it's good
does the job. Yes, indeed.
No, that's really, really good. So it reminds me of a video. I don't know if you ever saw this video. It went viral, and it was this little boy, and he got into the car with his dad, and he was telling his dad about these kids that had been bullying him because he didn't have the latest Jordans on. And then he was saying to his dad the story. His dad was like, "What did you say to the boy?" It was just like, "Yeah, I just said you lot are dumb. Like, why do you care about my shoes?" I swear he's like a motivational speaker, the little boy, because the way he was articulating himself, that he basically had to school them, like, my value isn't in the shoes that I'm wearing. Yeah, the boy was about 8 or 9, couldn't believe it. But yeah, I was like, this young man has really learned a lesson that so many of us go into adulthood not even learning, kind of thing. And he was just like, yeah, so what? Just because you lot are all wearing it because everyone's wearing it, but my shoe does the same job your shoe does, kind of thing. And
that's a surprisingly brave move, because like even me as a grown person, I still felt the pressure to wear the label, and to let go there was resistance, No,
I can imagine, keeping up with the virtual Joneses. Honeycoated Creation said exactly, like, who are these people that we're keeping up with and wasting all our money?
The virtual Joneses don't exist, so we're keeping up with no one at this point. Yeah, it's about being true to yourself, and that includes, being proud of your financial position, even when people don't get it, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Some of my friends are like, "Tony, you're doing too much." Like when we go out to eat and I'm complaining about the restaurant choices, I'm just like, look, if you want me to come, this is my budget and this is what I'm spending. So let's find somewhere that's within this budget, or let's just order takeaway at home, kind of thing. And it's just not succumbing to that peer pressure anymore, and just cut your cloth according to your size. There's nothing wrong with that. Literally nothing wrong with that. But no, that was, yeah, really, really good conversation, actually, Janet. I think this conversation could probably go on for much longer, but I'm conscious that it's quite late in the evening and you have young ones. I'm so happy my one stayed upstairs because last week he gate crashed on the live. He was like, no, mummy, I want to join. So yeah, today I managed to get rid of him. Lots of gates, so he can't come down. But no, it's been really good having this conversation with you, Janet. Thank you so much for coming on. I don't know if you have any final departing words before we go, guys.
No, anyone watching this who wants to support or has ideas or feedback, it's a work in progress, but yeah, exciting times. Hopefully I'm going to be able to get my January deadline up and be working with some bigger brands who can support and help take the message out there. So yeah, my email address is janet@success-all.com, and on Insta I'm at successall1.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. No, thank you, Janet, you've been amazing, and thank you guys for tuning in and staying to the end. And yeah, this is it, actually. That's the end of season number 6, so I'll be back in January, yeah, with season 4. This one's a shorter season than they usually are, but yeah, lots of other stuff going on in the background. So yeah, I'll be back in the new year. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys, and thanks again, Janet, for coming on, and speak to you all soon.
My pleasure. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.